Dillon Welch. He is someone who knows all about staying in and working in places like the spot I'm in right now. And that's a hotel room off the side of the highway, getting ready for a busy weekend of racing. It's the middle of a very, very busy stretch for Interstate Battery's High Limit. And while I don't like to record the introductions this way, I just knew I couldn't wait any longer to get this particular conversation out. I've been sitting on it since December, and it's one that I enjoyed being a part of very much. Dillon is a full-time professional motorsports broadcaster, and I guess you could call him a part-time semi-professional race car driver, as he still puts on a helmet and competes when his schedule allows. If you have watched the IndyCar series, the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, NASCAR Cup, or NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Racing over the last 5 years, chances are you have heard and seen Dillon Welch either in the booth or down on pit lane bringing you reports and updating you as to what's going on a particular race day. Dillon's a consummate professional, and he's someone that I look up to in the industry pretty highly. So to get to sit down and learn about not just how he got to where he is today in his career, but as is the theme with the couches that made us, who helped him get to where he is in his career today, was a great joy for me. Every time Dillon opened his mouth, it seemed like another awesome, interesting, or unique story was being told. Even in just watching this episode back to edit it and cut it down and get it ready to post, I was sitting there being entertained by the stories he told. It was very, very cool to learn about how he does his job in the business of motorsports broadcasting. And again, just the things he learned from the people who opened their doors and took him in. So I think this conversation has a little bit of something for everybody out there. And again, just watching it back myself, I had a pretty good time learning about Dillon and his path to where he is today. Massive thank you to both of our friends at Dillon, and I are friends with these guys, Hasty Baked Charcoal Grills. They are supporters of High Limit, yes, but they are supporters of dirt track racing. And for them to come on board with High Limit several times over the last couple of years, and now here with the couches that made us, they support the sport of dirt track racing, and I love that about them. The only thing I love more about them is how good every single bit of food I've ever had that has come off of a Hasty Baked Charcoal Grill tastes. They've been manufactured in the United States since the 1940s. They're out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And whether it's the grills that they manufacture or the food that comes off of them, everything these guys do is top notch, just like my friend Dillon, whether it's how he prepares for a broadcast, how he delivers the information, or just how he goes about his job behind the scenes. So Hasty Baked Charcoal Grills, Dillon Welch, it seemed like it made a lot of sense to bring these two together here on this episode. I had a lot of fun recording this one. I'm still a little cold and warming up, but man, Dillon was gracious with his time, and I really, really enjoyed getting to put on the headsets and hit record on a really cool conversation with him. I hope you enjoy it, and I figure we just get into it. So here to tell us about the couches that made him, Dillon Welch.
Most importantly, I want to ask, while you sat here for the extra 30 minutes while I went to go get my SD cards, which I forgot because this is my first time producing any kind of content originally, did you get a chance to sit here in the suite at Indianapolis Raceway Park and relive some of your fondest memories?
Well, it's funny when we came in here, obviously a couple booths down from us is the PA booth where you and I have both worked and called races here. And there's another booth, and I don't know if it's this one that we're in right now, but one of my really early memories too of coming to IRP was a NASCAR Busch race when my dad and I were in one of these suites, and we, during Kroger Speed Fest when they used to race here during the Brickyard. And I don't know why, I always remember coming here and watching that race. And then, cause like the next year, we went from like one extreme to the other. We were in the suite the one year, and the next year we just bought cheap seats in the temporary stands over there in 1 and 2 with all of like the real NASCAR fans. That was an experience for a young Dillon.
What year do you think that would have been?
Mid 2000s. It had to have been like 03, 04, something like that.
That's so funny because literally after I got back from the gym before I came here to set up with you, I just threw on YouTube while I was getting ready and packing the bag with everything. And on my YouTube prompts, because all I do is sit and watch old NASCAR races, the '07 Busch race from IRP on ESPN pops up here, and your dad was one of the pit reporters.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So I was kind of thinking like, man, how close. When you originally started telling the story, I'm like, maybe he's going to tell the one of the race I was just watching.
So I've sat in one of these suites in the 1 and 2 temp stands, and then I've also sat in the 3 and 4 temp stands during a Busch race too. And that year, and it might have been 07, they had a huge crash down there right in front of us, 15 car crash. They all just piled in down there right in front of us. That was a good time too.
And I strived to have some kind of cool looking background here where we'd see the snow covered Indianapolis Raceway Park behind us, but it's something about light blowing out the subject and the cameras not being able to realize the super bright light coming in from behind you isn't what it should focus on. So unfortunately, people may or may not be able to tell by now that we're in one of the suites at the Indianapolis Raceway Park. And when you and I were talking about doing this, which you've been extremely gracious with your time, and I appreciate that very much, we talked about coming here. You suggested it because if I remember right, you talked about this being maybe, I really hope I get this quote or, summation of the quote correctly. You talked about kind of coming here as a kid and the thought first hitting you like, oh, I could and I want to do this. But at that point, I think this was driving the race cars. Is that correct?
Yeah. I came here when I was probably, 7 or 8 years old. I mean, shortly after I'd started racing quarter midgets for like a USAC midget race here, like a Thunder race. And they had all the cars pitted on the front stretch and all the midgets and stuff pitted on the front stretch doing driver intros. And I just remember sitting in the stands and I was like, man, this is the freaking coolest thing ever. Because the midgets do fly around here.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just want, because I was racing, like I said, by that time. And my goal that day became to just race a midget at IRP. And I felt like if I ever accomplished that, if I ever got to a point where I was getting to race a midget at IRP, I was going to be pretty happy because like that was really the only goal I had at that time as a 7 or 8 year old. Was I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. So yeah, this place means a lot to me. It's my grandparents live literally within earshot of this place. So even before I ever came here, I have memories of being at their house and hearing race cars here, whether it was open wheel stuff or stock cars, or especially the dragsters during U.S. Nationals. Those obviously carried a lot of sound. So this place has always just kind of been, from the time that I've been old enough to kind of start remembering things and recollecting things, retaining memories. IRP has always kind of been a really special place to me.
I got to just say, well, first off, I want to give a shout out. One, we're in the Grant King suite up here, just to the turn one side of the PA booth, which you talked about you've worked in, I've gotten to work in, and that's a big part of another part of the reason I think we're here is because not only did you have a career on the pavement here, you had a career up above it as well, which we're definitely going to talk about. But we're in the Grant King shop, so they don't know that we're here. We're really appreciative of Max here at Indianapolis Raceway Park and Casey Kohler, who by the time this comes out, it's already public that he's no longer the general manager here, taking over the reins at the United States Auto Club. Again, when you live in Indianapolis and you know people that work in the industry who also live here, everything touches everything. Yeah. But I understand you also have a good relationship with Casey as well.
Yeah, well, and Casey, I actually saw him at the USAC banquet on Friday, and we had a really good conversation. But I think the podcast that our old buddy Tyler Burnett and I used to do, I believe he was a guest on there at one point, maybe shortly after the time he got announced as GM here when the pavement midget stuff was kind of being revitalized. So we had a good talk, he and I did on Friday, about how that's still important to him. Even in his new role, he's not losing sight of the importance of this place and its history and what it means to USAC as well. So that was encouraging to hear as a guy that still is very passionate about pavement open wheel racing. I'm glad that this place isn't going to be forgotten.
It's such a shame. It's such a bummer. And I don't have the life. I wasn't born and raised here like you were. And I didn't grow up coming to IRP. And you said that in your first story about coming here and watching, where you thought as a 7, 8 year old, if I could just race a midget at the Indianapolis Raceway Park, that's it, right? And I got to say, I love your philosophy so much because, when you read Tony Stewart's book or you really, if you study any of the greats, their goal was never, I got to win the Indianapolis 500. I have to win the NASCAR Cup Championship 3 times. It was always, man, if I get paid to drive a sprint car and a midget, that'd be life. I grew up exposed to NASCAR just this much, thinking, that's where I'm going to be there one day. I so appreciate your attitude as a young kid, just And it's not about not shooting too high, but more just going, this is a goal that I believe I can attain, even at your very young age, and going, that's what I want. And I just, that doesn't really have a big place in what we're going to talk about today, but I just got to say, I loved hearing your philosophy on that, because myself and so many others included are just like, well, forget the little stuff. We're going to go all the way to the front. And I don't think that's how you get to the top.
Yeah.
Personally.
Well, I agree. And I think, I was lucky because I grew up, in an era where, like, you could be a local sprint car racer in Indiana, and you're not going to make a ton of money, but like there were guys that John Stambro, Dave Darland, Shane Cottle. I mean, even before that, guys that just were like Indiana sprint car heroes and legends, and people just were like, man, I just, like kids that I raced with, it's like, man, I just want to be a sprint car racer, because I think it's hard for people to understand, maybe because the local scene here isn't what it used to be. But like in the early, late 90s, early 2000s, kind of when I was growing up, it was like that was around here, like that was everything. So and IRP was still, very active with a lot of open wheel stuff going on. So just kind of racing stuff around here was like, that was good enough. That was cool. That was the cool thing to do.
And in that 07, I think it was the 07 Busch race here at IRP, I'm watching your dad's first hit on the pre-race coverage was riding around during driver introductions in the driver parade with Bobby East.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it was publicized. That was the whole 3-minute hit he had, was you grew up racing out here. You're from Brownsburg, Indiana. You're a USAC champ, all this stuff. Right. And they played into the fact that he had a crowd there that were there to see the USAC local, the star from sprint cars, make their way up to the NASCAR level. Not like Bobby East was the first one to ever do it, and he hasn't been the last, but I just, you're 100% correct. And then the other thing you said that I got to hit on is, what a shame that sprint car and pavement midget racing isn't as big as it was when you were coming up, or guys like Stewart and Dave Darland, where the USAC National Championship was maybe not exactly 50-50, but it was a lot of pavement and then your classic dirt races. So I'm definitely, I think we could do a whole recording on just talking about your career as a driver and your career in pavement, sprint car racing and pavement midget. Did you do any? I mean, I know you do the Chili Bowl still. You had the track record at Kokomo. You still may have the track record in a midget at Kokomo. So it's not like you were a pavement guy only. You had your dirt experience.
Well, I was a pavement guy only until about the time I was 18. So to your point, kind of about how, pavement stuff isn't what it used to be. When I got out of quarter midgets, we had two options. We could go run a Kenyan midget, which was at the time exclusively on pavement, or go run a micro. And this was 2007. So the pavement stuff was still on all the national schedules, still healthy. And so we committed to like going and running pavement, because we felt like that was going to be the best opportunity for me to like continue to advance my career. And then in 08, the economy, took a crap. Yeah. So, and then everything changed kind of over the next like 4 or 5 years, as I was growing up and kind of getting to a point to where, the first year I ran a national midget, there was, I don't even know how many pavement races there were on the schedule. Not a ton. Like we ran a couple here, ran at Iowa, ran at Milwaukee. But the numbers were going down. And then by 2014, it was like a separate deal. And so like my timing was kind of, for a guy that just wanted to be a pavement guy, well, it wasn't going to work.
Right.
So if I wanted to keep racing, I had to do something different, which is when, I went and drove for Clausen's in 2012, and I had never raced anything on dirt. I got in a dirt midget and had never raced anything on dirt, never ran a micro, never ran, I ran quarter midgets on dirt, but that didn't really count. So, and so since 2012, I ran one pavement race, here night before the 500 in 2013, and everything else I've run since then has been dirt. So,
wow.
I'm a dirt guy now, but I consider myself to be a pavement guy, because that was like the path I was on and the path I wanted to be on.
And I just, with what I do now in dirt racing full time and what you have done, I think it's fair to say that there's elitism at every level of anything you do, right? You go over to an IMSA sports car race and they look down on NASCAR and IndyCar, and you go to an IndyCar race and they look down on, this isn't, your thing isn't the Indy 500. And in the dirt world, it definitely exists where I think dirt racers look at pavement and go like, it's boring, one lane. You're not sideways. You're not throwing it in there and flicking it to the side. And I really, that's unfortunate because I think there's amazing opportunity for pavement racing, whatever kind of car it is, to be wildly entertaining. And it's just so cool that we have this little gem of a pavement oval in the Indianapolis Raceway Park here. And again, back to that 07 race I was watching, they highlighted the fact that it can be two groove around here, depending on the type of, I've been here for a couple Road to Indy Carb Night Classic snoozers. I once watched, I think, Pato Ward lead all 75 laps or something. But yeah, it's just such a cool way to grow up, and you had that thought as a 7-8-year-old. Oh, I just got to find a way to race a midget IRP. So then you do that. We're talking about your career. Was there a hope for Dillon Welch, the driver, to be much more than a sprint car and a midget guy as you were growing up? Once you were finally in that world, was there, okay, now here's the next step, and what was it?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to continue to be a full-time racer. There's no doubt about that. But I got to a point where I graduated high school, and my mom and dad, thank God for this, they basically were like, you're going to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you want to keep racing, like, we can try to figure out a way to keep racing, but you're going to go to school. Like, I wanted to just like go work on cars and
be a racer,
be on the road, and they didn't let me do that, which was good because I was not good enough to be a full-time race car driver, which I've, over, the next couple of years began to realize that I would have never made it.
It's a little bit easier to swallow as you get older.
Yeah. And obviously my career, because I went to school, has now allowed me to continue to stay in racing, which has been the biggest blessing, of all of it. So, I was in, like I said, I graduated high school and which was in 2012. And then that was the year I started racing dirt stuff. And, I ran like a full year of Power I with Clausen's. And, after that, we were just like, well, I'm not good enough. I'm going to try to race here and there if I can. And that's why kind of for the, the next 10, 15 years now, I've just kind of been a part-time guy. It's just because went to school, started, working and that kept me busy enough to where, I couldn't race as much as I probably wanted to, but really don't need to at this point anymore.
Did your dad race anything?
No, he never did.
Or are you the first generation like driver in your family?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. My dad grew up here on the west side of Indy, so was obviously very familiar with racing and familiar with the big track and went as a kid, but he was a stick and ball guy, loved basketball and baseball and football. But as his broadcasting career started to kind of grow and develop, being in Indy as a local sports guy, he started to get more racing assignments. And, really the first kind of full-time year that he was on the road doing racing stuff was about the time where I started to express interest in racing myself. So, our careers in this industry kind of merged into one around the same time, which is funny, but yeah, racing was not his like first choice even of a profession. And, his kid came along and kind of nudged him that way in some instances. And now, we're both obviously involved in it.
You told me some story at Brosini's Pizzeria on Main Street in Speedway, Indiana. Great spot if you haven't checked it out. I'm a regular there. You may not be. It's good. I'm thinking about getting a punch card.
You should.
We went and met John Doonan there for dinner the other night during PRI. And you didn't have to go to any PRI stuff other than the USAC banquet, did you?
I did not, but that was an optional attendance for me.
That's why I said you didn't have to, did you? Because I now live here, and man, I can't think of a better way to spend a weekend in December than not going to PRI.
It's a long weekend.
Yeah, it really is. But there are also those dinners that you see photos and videos of. You're like, oh man, I wish I was there to get lumped into that. So. You talk about, I brought up Brosini's because if I remember right, you told me a story at Brosini's about all this, where a quarter midget or a car of yours gets unloaded out of a NASCAR hauler.
Well, so my dad was at Phoenix doing an IRL race and was talking to Billy Boat about me, as a 6-7-year-old kid just being obsessed with cars and racing.
Mm-hmm.
And Billy turned to my dad and said, well, we're getting ready to sell one of my kids' quarter midgets. Why don't you buy that? Which was Chad. And so my dad I guess, came home and told my mom that we were going to buy this quarter midget for me. And that was in, like the spring, early part of the year. And so they bought this quarter midget, and I guess they loaded it up on Billy's IndyCar hauler. And
Yes,
when they came here for the month of May in 2001, they had the thing wrapped up on a pallet, unloaded it off the back of a pallet, put it on a pickup truck, and Billy drove it to our house and dropped it off at our house in Carmel. And so that was, we sat there and looked at it, didn't even know how to start it. Like Billy had to show us how to turn the thing on and get it to run, and had no idea what we were doing.
That's great.
But we had a race car. So we went racing that summer, and the rest is history.
That's great. Your dad's just like, we're going to do this. I don't know anything about it. Not like I don't know much. I don't know anything about it, but we're going to get this race car. It's going to be delivered to the state of Indiana, where we live, in the back of a double-decker IndyCar transporter, and that's how your first race car was delivered.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
I hope you won a lot in that car.
We did. That was a good little race car for us. I think it was good for Chad, too, and it was good for us. We had it for a couple of years, won a championship with it out here at the little track at the fairgrounds, so it was good.
So we're talking about your dad, and I think this is the perfect jumping point for kind of the point of what I really want to talk to you about today, which is how you get to where you're at today in your career and in your life. And I'm going to address kind of, give a little bit of a resume in the intro to this. I'll record later, but you're a full-time professional motorsports broadcaster, and you don't just hang around Indiana and do stuff on the local TV like your dad started out by doing. Your dad goes on to have a great career, obviously, but you're working today at the highest level of American motorsports. You're on NBC, you're on the CW network covering the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and you do a lot of really, really cool stuff. And what we're talking about today is how you get there, obviously with the help of some couches and guest rooms that you ended up staying on. But I want to talk about you and your dad for a second, and I have always wanted to say this to you in the last couple of years as we've gotten closer, but I thought, I'm going to save it for a real integral podcast interview moment if I ever do one, and get myself some content here. I owe you a major apology, because as I learned about you and I found out who you were, and I found out who your dad was, and I saw what you were doing, I had that initial thought of jealousy, because I think so many of us in broadcasting, just like race car drivers, can't stand to see someone else do what we do, especially when they're better at it, which you certainly are. But I had that initial thought of, well, that guy's only there because of who his dad is. And I've learned and gotten to know you in the last couple of years, and I am embarrassed that I had that thought, because you're definitely one of the more talented and definitely one of the more hardworking, thoroughly involved in your craft broadcasters that I've ever known or worked with. So first off, I just want to let you know that I was wrong, and I apologize for having that thought. But you have to have had come up against that thought, that opinion about you and your dad, probably way before you ever knew me.
Yeah, and no apology needed. I appreciate it, but I never, I'm sure it happened. I never necessarily dealt with that directly. I've seen it on social media. I mean, I saw it even when they announced the CW thing about a year ago this time, that I was a Nepo baby, and which that stuff's never bothered me, because I just don't let it bother me. And I know the difficulty of this industry and how nothing is handed to you, no matter who you are, for, the most part. But, Dad was really good about, even when I was first kind of getting started, about making me do it on my own. He obviously had a lot of connections, and that was maybe an advantage that I had over somebody else not in my situation. But he would always say, here's so-and-so's email, send him an email, tell him who you are, and see what happens. And I'm really grateful for that, because it separated us, in that sense. And I know there are still people that work in the industry that don't know that I'm Vince Welch's son. And that's good. I think he would prefer it that way, that we have our own separate careers. It's awesome that we, have done the same thing and have gotten to share some really cool moments of we've worked races together on the air together. We've worked events separately, but the same, the Indy 500, I think we're the first father and son to ever broadcast the Indy 500, which like
Yeah.
is an awesome thing that, I know we're both really proud of. But he always made me do it myself and made me do it on my own, to establish my own relationships and my own connections and make it to where if I ever got to the point where I'm at now, that it was legit, and that it wasn't because I had a foot in the door already. So I heard a great quote this is a long time ago. I heard a great quote from Marco Andretti, about, being an Andretti.
Exactly.
And he said, being an Andretti, can open some doors for you, but you still have to walk through those doors.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's exactly right.
Well, it's just a name it can be a help, but it can also be a hindrance when it comes to like the pressure.
Right.
And I think a lot about like Kyle Larson's done a lot for both you and I feel like with High Limit and paying us to come and
Certainly.
be a part of those events. But you look at his kids and you go, oh, wow, Owen and Audrey are racing now in micro sprints, and they're going to be at the Tulsa Shootout in a few weeks. And I plan on having Clinton Boyles on this couch as well, because he runs Kyle's micro program now for his children. And you look at those kids and you go, they're never going to get a fair shot. And the same could be said for you. The same could have been said, probably was said about Dale Earnhardt Jr. coming up under Dale Sr., Marco coming up underneath Michael and Mario. The name can be a help, but the name can also be an unbearable amount of pressure in the sense of, oh, wow, Vince Welch has done a lot in broadcasting and is very, very talented. His son has to be just as good or he's a failure.
Yeah.
Was that ever a part of coming up and realizing, oh, man, my dad's very established in this world. I have to operate at the same level and quickly. Did that ever factor in?
No, it really, to be honest, never did. And I never tried to compare our paths or how we got to where, we were at, because truthfully, we took different paths. Like my dad was in, like we talked about, was in local news here in Indianapolis, and not stumbled into racing, but like racing was not his first choice. And it became his livelihood and became something that he really enjoyed. But for me, like from the moment I picked up a microphone, like I wanted to be a racing announcer. And so we went about it, I think, different ways. And I obviously had a little bit different, experience just driving myself. And I think that kind of opened some other opportunities and some other doors for me that just made the way we got to where we were at a little different. Mm-hmm. So certainly when I got to the, like the network level or just the television level, having him there to kind of teach me not so much about the craft, but just like the business of the industry and like what to do, what not to do, like how to network, just all of the off camera stuff it's been so, I think, critical for me to just have somebody like him to lean on from an experience standpoint.
Well, and I heard you say that I went and found your old Don K interview that you did right after you graduated, or maybe you hadn't graduated yet, and you talked about that, and I thought that was a great quote, which is like, Dad doesn't really pick apart the craft and the reporting and the announcing, but what he does do is help me in how to carry myself and how to interact and it goes back to something I feel like is very accurate that my father would not once say, all the time say to us, is it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Totally.
And no doubt that, being the son of a well-known and established broadcaster, it may or may not have gotten you into doors, but it's like you said about Marco's quote, you still had to get there and do the work. And nobody's going to keep you around just because you're XYZ's child or XYZ. You have to show up and bring quality to that broadcast. And clearly, whatever it's been, 10, 12 years, however long now you've been in the game, you continue to bring quality to broadcast based on how hard you work. And I've gotten to see it firsthand, even just in the few high limit races you've come back and done with Chase and I. You prepare very meticulously and you just know the sport. So clearly the name, whether it was a help or not, you've made it to this point on your own merit.
Well, and that was what my dad, my dad always was, I thought, the most prepared guy on the broadcast. Just did his homework, did his, like I remember, like watching him do his notes and his charts for college basketball games that he would do during the winter. He'd had everything spread out. This was before iPads and stuff. He had everything all spread out over the kitchen table. And like, I'd just sit there and just watch him do notes, and he was combing through press release and doing all the, so like from an early age, that was imprinted on me too, that like, you don't just show up and like turn the mic on.
Exactly.
Like you gotta be ready to, to talk and know what you're talking about. And, ultimately, like, you just want to be respected as somebody that can be trusted and does a good job for all of the people that gave you the opportunity. So like, it's kind of your due diligence, I think, is, no matter what it is, whether you're doing, announcing at your local short track or whatever, it's like you have a responsibility as the guy that's talking to know what you're talking about.
I love how you word that. You have you have to show up and prove that you can be trusted.
Yeah.
Because lots of people at the level you're at, and a lot of people at the level I'm at, and just, again, it doesn't matter if you're calling the local, Saturday night show at a track that never heard of streaming. You are still being trusted by people to represent the track, the sponsors, the drivers, their family. So I love your attitude and how you look at it. You get started, in the world of broadcasting by seeing your dad do it as you grow up, and then you get into it yourself. And I don't know if USAC was your first announcing gig, was it?
It was my first racing announcing gig. I did basketball and football and stuff in high school, but the USAC stuff was the first racing stuff I ever did.
And if I remember correctly from talking to you, I mean, you basically just kind of cold call Kirk Spridgen at USAC. Is that correct?
Yeah, I either texted him or called him. I was at Ball State at the time, and I remember I was walking through like the communications building there, and I was just like real down because I'd been doing like I said, basketball and football announcing like at the Ball State radio station, and just was like, one, wasn't very good, like, because it just wasn't my thing. But just was like, just bummed, I was like, is this what I really want to do? Like, how do I get to race? Like, I just was lost. Mm-hmm. And obviously was a fan of USAC and knew Spridge just from my time racing here. And so I reached out to him and was like, hey, do you guys by chance need an announcer for anything or, next year, this coming year? And he was like, actually, yeah, we do.
So what would this have been, 14?
This was like the winter of 13 into 14.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he was like, actually, we do. Like, we don't have anybody full time. We can figure something out. And so I didn't do Florida. They already had somebody that was there to do the Florida sprint car races. But when they got back to the Midwest, he called me and he was like, hey, we're racing at sprint cars at Lawrenceburg, Midwest opener. And then the next day they're running Silver Crown cars at Terre Haute. Come hang out.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I went and just hung out in the booth and watched the sprint car race at Lawrenceburg. And the next day we went to Terre Haute, and Pat Sullivan was the announcer, and he let me do Victory Lane. I've known Pat for a long time. He was very gracious and kind of letting me do that. And so I did Victory Lane. And then like the next week or 2 weeks later was the Don Branson Judd Larson Classic at Eldora for the sprint cars. And Spridge called me and said, okay, you're up. We don't have anybody to announce, so it's your show. So the very first time I ever did any racing play-by-play like live was a national sprint car race at Eldora.
Yeah, that's easy. That's how most of them get started, I think.
So it was like, it literally was a sink or swim moment. Like in Spridge, I don't know how or why he trusted me with that kind of opportunity, but he did. And I guess it got me a job for the rest of the year because they didn't fire me, and I did every race the rest of the year. And then the next 2 years after that. So I do have him to thank, because if he had any second thoughts or any premonition that it was not going to be a good idea and had pulled the plug, I don't know what would have happened.
So where in the long line of USAC announcers, because it has been a long line, so you said that, that was your first year, was going into 14 is when you contact Switch. And then I feel like it was maybe a year or two after you left, Tyler Burnett, a good friend of the motorsports world, he does some USAC announcing. Did you guys ever work together at USAC?
So Tyler was the year before me. Tyler was 13.
Okay.
And so like Blake Anderson was 2011, kind of did some in 2012. Tyler was 13, then I was 14 through 16. So I really didn't, like, I knew Tyler a little bit just because when I was hanging around in 13, I was still racing a little bit at that time. So like knew him very casually. But then he moved to North Carolina. Like he did that like his last year of college. And then after that went to North Carolina to work for MRN.
And you obviously end up following him to go chase stock cars and NASCAR. I just got to tell you, I don't know if we've probably talked about this. I'm not sure. I've probably told you this story, but just in case, here it is again. You leaving USAC in 16 ends up kind of being my door into the sport, and I'm at IMS the week after the Grand Prix at Indianapolis. It's May. They've just run on the road course, and it's that week leading into probably qualifying, and I get roped into sticking around and filling in for, really replacing Chris Wheeler, because he committed to something he didn't want to do, believe it or not. And that was the Purdue E-Prix that USAC was sanctioning. Purdue E-Prix, the electric go-kart race that all the engineering students at Purdue build go-karts for. And all USAC, I think sanctioning meant was show up, put out some barriers in a kidney bean 10th mile oval, and we need someone to announce it. So I get roped in, and I meet Jason Smith, and I'd already worked with Aaron Likens in karting a lot. He flagged the event, and the event's over. And by the way, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anything about electric go-karts. I don't know anything about Purdue University, the Grand Prix. So it's a total kind of like, not screw off, but it's just kind of like let's just have fun with this kind of deal. And I call it, and at the end of the day, it was a 2-day deal. First day got rained out. I turn around at the end of the second day, the end of the event, and I don't know who they are at the time. Here's Kevin Miller and Levi Jones, and they approach me and go, well, hey, they go, first off, I think they go, you're funny. And I go, well, thanks, but looks aren't everything. And they go, do you do this for a living? And they explained to me that their current USAC announcer is getting ready to leave for NASCAR. They don't name anybody. They don't say anything. They just go, our current guy is getting ready to leave for NASCAR at the end of the season. Would you ever want to do this full time? And I, other than reading Tony Stewart's book and following his career, I don't know anything about USAC. And then for the next couple of years, I would have commitments with IMSA or Road to Indy. They would have a guy. It always seemed that when I had an opportunity, they had somebody. When they needed somebody, I had a contract signed. And it was just always funny that happens in the spring of 16. And then I don't even know when I end up officially meeting you and getting to know you. Probably maybe the summer I announced at USAC in 21. I don't know if we'd met before that. But, when you begin to make your way down to North Carolina, they start scrambling. They start looking for people. And you, because this isn't about me, it's about you, end up going down to Charlotte. But that's where the couches and the guest rooms start, because you don't go down to Charlotte, sign a lease, get an apartment, move down there, and just start kicking butt and getting every gig in the state. You have to get a little bit of help. The first couch, the first guest room comes in, Corey Tucker, with a good friend of the boats, and you knew him through racing with the boats, and he's living down in North Carolina. What's that original plan like? How does that come together that you're just going to move to a new state and try to break into this industry? Yeah,
so Corey, when I was driving for Clausen's in 2012, Corey co-owned the team with Brian and Tim. So I'd known Corey for a while, and and a few years later, 2016, I'm trying to kind of figure out what I'm going to do, graduate from college. Think I want to go down to North Carolina, but don't have any guaranteed, jobs or anything like that. Don't have a place to live, like you said. And I was at Chili Bowl 2017, and I got a call from a guy at NASCAR who said, hey, we've got an editing job for you. Come down here. It's like 25 weeks worth of work, basically, but it's something. And I didn't have anything else. So I was like, well, okay. And I don't even remember how we got, linked up with Corey at that point, other than maybe just my dad asking around kind of, people in the industry if they knew of anybody that had a spare room or whatever. But Corey literally, in his partner, Andrea, had this great, beautiful house in Denver, North Carolina, and just opened it up to me. Like we packed my stuff up, and I drove down there and moved into their guest room and stayed there for free for 3 months. And kind of got my feet underneath me down there, got a routine and just kind of got established, and was doing this, this editing job, but not making very much money, as you'd imagine.
That's the thing. So you don't go down there even for an announcing opportunity.
No, I had no announcing. I was doing some stuff with MRN, but this is not going to be a newsflash to anybody. You don't make very much money doing radio. So I knew and I ultimately wanted to try to get a TV job, but I had the job offer for me when I moved down there was to be a production assistant. It was not to move down there to be on TV.
And when you say somebody from NASCAR calls you and it has an editing job, is that NASCAR Productions?
That was NASCAR Productions, yeah. And the guy that called me is named Keith D'Alessandro, who I now work for at the CW. So
no kidding.
It's kind of a full circle thing. But yeah, so he called me at Chili Bowl and was like, we've got this editing job. You can come down here and we'll try to get you some on-air stuff, but there's no guarantees. And I was like, I got to try it. Mm-hmm. I got to go for it. And so I went down there and worked at the NASCAR building there in Uptown Charlotte. And usually once or twice a week, I'd go up a couple floors and just go knock on his door, Keith's door, and just try and talk to him and see if he had any on-air opportunities. And by the end of the year, we had a couple, and it kind of got the snowball rolling down the hill.
That's crazy. I mean, see, that's what I think it's really all about. And I don't think I over-romanticize it at all, but the struggle is where it all comes from, right? It's not you sitting up out of bed one day after graduating Ball State, getting a nice little summer vacation, and then learning, oh, there's a full-time on-camera talent position covering the largest kind of motorsports in North America that I've always wanted to be a part of. I guess I'll just go down to North Carolina and make my way. It's going, oh, this is not even the kind of job I want.
Right.
But it's at least in the industry. I'm going to take a flyer and go down there and move in with someone who you probably, is it fair to say, barely know?
Yes.
And his fiance at the time. And you're just going to move in with them and just hope it works out.
Yeah.
Did that seem crazy at the time?
Well, it seemed like one of those moments that, you look back on as like you're like a sink or swim moment. Like I said earlier, it's like, this is where you figure out what you're made of. I'd never lived anywhere outside of Indiana before. I'd lived at college, but that's college, but like was moving to a new state, knew really nobody, with a job that I didn't really want, but felt like I kind of had to take to just get myself in the area. And I mean, that first year, man, like it was hard for me. Like I was homesick. I was lonely because like, I'm not a very social person. I don't make friends very easily. And I was lonely and I was ready to be done. I was ready to quit, move home, and stuck it out.
Yeah.
And thank God I did.
Well, it can't be lost. And again, the whole point of the couch show here is that, oh, who'd you stay with? Who helped you out? What did you learn from them? But again, it cannot be overstated how tough it is to sign up for something that you don't want to do. You weren't looking to break into editing.
Yeah.
And I think I've been faced with these positions, these quandaries other people in our everybody has, right? It doesn't matter what you want to do. Sometimes the only way to get in the room where those people are is to do something you don't want to do. And I don't know I definitely think you and I come from a generation where like, that's not always like the popular move. It's either what I want or nothing.
Yeah.
And maybe guys from your dad's generation or maybe the one before his, it was a lot more common to go, yeah, I'll sweep floors, whatever it is. There's always that cliche of the guy who's racing on Sundays and he started there at the shop by sweeping floors. I don't know how many of those stories are accurate,
right.
But you kind of did that by going, I don't want to edit video and audio together. I don't want to make pieces for NASCAR. But the only way I get into that room is to do that. And I just got to say, again, I love your attitude and the way you go about things. That's a massive, I think, step of maturity to go, hey, it's my only shot and I'm going to take it. And I'm sure your parents were very supportive. And if it doesn't work out, you can always come back to Indiana and figure it out here. There's clearly opportunity. But again, I think that's very brave to go down there and do that and take that chance on yourself, which is what you were doing.
Yeah, I was. And you're right. My mom and dad were really supportive and encouraging kind of throughout that whole process of like, you got to try, because if you don't, it's that cliche of you'll always kind of, you'll wonder what if, so, we did it and went down there and like I said, like, having Corey there to kind of give me some lodging and just give me a place that felt like home, with home cooked meals every night and just to kind of ease that transition as a, 21-year-old kid, was a huge thing for me.
He was at Penske?
Yeah, he was at Penske.
I think he still is.
I think so too.
Because we spoke and he told me that, what did you say, 3 or 4 months?
Yeah,
3
probably.
months
Yeah,
you were
3
there?
months. Yeah.
I said, well, what was he like? What was Dillon like as a tenant? What was he like as a guest?
Oh boy.
Because actually tenant's the wrong word. A tenant is someone who pays.
Right.
A tenant and a landlord. You were a guest in Corey's home. And I said, what was he like? And he goes, honestly, man, we were both so busy, kind of working in the same industry, but in different spaces of it. Because we didn't see each other a lot.
We really didn't.
He goes, I'd be heading out the door when he was coming in, and I'd be coming back into the house when he was getting ready to go to a gig or an event or to the office to edit or whatever. So he said that, you guys were kind of just cohabitants in the same area, but there wasn't a whole lot of like spending time together.
Yeah, I'd say that would be accurate, and like we would, like we would sit on the couch and watch basketball games or stuff like that. But he worked at the shop at Penske. So Monday through Friday, he was, 7 a.m. he was out the door.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have, I worked like more of a 9 to 5, but, he was probably like 7 to 3. So like we really didn't see each other that much. And then,
did he go on the road with Penske?
No, he was home usually. Okay. So, and then like on, Thursday or Friday would come around and I'd leave to go do MRN or whatever else.
So
I was
were
doing.
Traveling a little bit.
A little bit. I had like 12 races with MRN that first year, I think, or something. So not a lot, there were plenty of weekends where I was home and didn't really do much. And, that was kind of where Tyler Burnett came in, because he was like my first, one of my first real friends down there. So I'd go, get into trouble with him and do dumb stuff. But yeah, it was like I said, like it wasn't like necessarily Corey and I hung out all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just the fact that it was a nice place where, I had my own space and I could kind of do my own thing and kind of, get comfortable at my own pace.
Well, Corey was very gracious with his time. He spoke to me on the phone for maybe 20 minutes, and I don't know the gentleman, unfortunately, but I think he's about maybe, 25, 30 years older than you?
Yeah, at least, probably, yeah.
And so, again, that's got to be crazy to just be like, I'm 21,
yeah,
and I'm moving in with a guy who's, by then, I guess, maybe in his late 40s?
Probably, yeah.
And so, one of the big things about the trip I took through all these guest rooms and couches is I didn't just learn about announcing or being a broadcaster by staying with some of these people, because very rarely did I stay with anybody who was in my field, but I stayed with people who were in racing. So, and it's I think I know the answer, because what you've both just said, you didn't see each other a lot, you didn't spend a lot of time together. Did you pick anything up from living with Corey that had nothing to do with your job, but maybe just something that you saw a mid-40s guy go through that maybe at 21 you were like, well, maybe I saw my dad go through that. Maybe I didn't, because I don't know if he's even, I don't know who was older, your dad or him at that time, probably Corey. Did you pick up any life experiences with Corey that you can really fall back on?
Well, I don't know. I've honestly never really thought about that, but Corey is like an engineer. Mm-hmm. So he just, everything is very meticulous. Everything's very clean. Everything's very organized. His side business, and I think he still does this, but he would do like, he like built Nerf bars for midgets and sprint cars.
Okay.
And so in the garage at his house, he always had a bunch of, he'd come home from work, he'd go out there and
bend metal,
build Nerf bars and build metal and stuff. But everything, like, and even his cars, even when he was partnered with Chad Boat on his stuff, like all the cars were just, everything was always just nice and it was clean and it looked good. And that was the same way he lived too. His house and his vehicles and everything was just clean and organized. And I'm that way inherently too. So I think thankfully, we weren't clashing on that front, mm-hmm. because I wasn't like, I tried to always be very respectful of his space and stuff. But he was a pro, like you could see why he was successful in life and what he did, because he was, he was on top of everything, and that extended to the home.
Well, nobody works for Team Penske by accident.
Right.
If you're living with a guy, I've got a friend who's an engineer on the timing stand for one of the Indy cars, and I mean, the engineers are just different people.
Yeah, they are.
Right, and how they look at stuff. So, all right, so, and then you only spend 3 months there, and it's not because you were a bad house guest, or at least he didn't say that. It was because his fiance, I don't know if they were engaged at that point or not, but his partner, as you said, her parents end up moving in, and this was a prearranged deal, and they end up kind of having to take the guest room and kick you out.
Right.
So you make your way on down the road after only 3 months in Charlotte. And is it straight to Cheddar's house?
Straight to Cheddar's, yeah. Robert Smith, who was the car chief at the time, longtime car chief for Kevin Harvick, who, again, he had me and another person in there renting his spare bedrooms too, because he was the same way. He worked at the shop, and then this was pre-COVID, so every Thursday through Sunday night, he was gone.
Yeah,
he was on the road. So he's like, it's kind of dumb of me to have a house here and, have all these empty bedrooms and like not make a little money on it.
Pay mortgage on a place he's never in.
Yeah. But that was fun. Like that was closer to, Cheddar's house was closer to like kind of the heartbeat of the Lake Norman area, which,
mm-hmm.
For anybody that's been or hasn't been in Charlotte, that's like where the racing scene is.
Yeah.
So that was really fun for me because that kind of got me closer to the action and the socializing, and Cheddar was fun. Like, he'd come home from the shop on, someday, during the summer when it was nice out and be like, hey, let's go get a beer, go do whatever.
Yeah.
And we'd load up. He used to have this old Jeep that he, I think like restored, or was his first Jeep or something that he owned. And we used to just load up in that thing and drive over to the bar and have a couple beers and just it just was fun, like fun guy to live with, and a little younger than Corey, like closer to me in age, but again, like a guy that was a professional, like, at the highest level. So, and held me to a high standard too, like as a tenant, like, expected, to come home to a clean house and like, no dishes in the sink and that kind of stuff. So that was good for me too, to just kind of have that, that kind of, not discipline, that's the wrong word, but just like
structure.
Yeah, structure. Yeah, structure is a good word for it.
Well,
so,
and that's the thing too, is when you go out at a young age, you're 21 at this point, and it's your first time living away from home. And what's Muncie from Carmel? An hour?
Yeah, probably not even.
Probably not even that. So you were always within earshot of your parents, and then you're going across state lines. You didn't leave the time zone, but you go across state lines, and you're living with people who are not your blood.
Right.
They're not even your friends at the beginning of the relationship, and there is a rigid sense of like, even if it's only you putting it on yourself, of like, oh, I got to act right because these people don't need me to be here. They're not my parents. They won't get in trouble with well, you're 21. Your parents could have kicked you out and not gotten in trouble with the law anyway. But I know I experienced that where you're kind of like, there's this air of like, oh, I gotta sit up and I gotta do it right. Was that the first time in your life you'd kind of ever had that?
Yeah, like my mom and dad were good about, kind of expecting, me to do my chores and keep my room clean, like all that stuff when I was younger. So like,
yeah, that's not, I've worded that wrong. It's not to say like, did your parents just let you run around wild?
I know what you mean.
But like with like a little bit of extra sense of it.
Well, it's funny though, because like when I went to college, and I would say this to my one roommate, if he was sitting right here, he's one of my best friends. I lived in a 4-person house and it was 2 bathrooms. So the one side of the house, I shared a bathroom with my buddy I was across the hall from. The other side of the house shared a bathroom.
This is at Ball State. And my buddy that I shared the bathroom with was an awful roommate, just awful, just destroyed the bathroom, and I'm not talking like the toilet, but just like crap everywhere. Yeah. Left it a mess.
Yeah. And, I was always like on his ass, like, dude, come on. Like it's one thing if this is your own bathroom, but like we're sharing this. And like, so like I had like an understanding of just like respecting people's space. I think just from my mom and dad kind of drilling that into me when I was younger. But to your point, it's way different when you're going into somebody else's space, and you're just a kid and you're trying not to, you're just trying to do everything right at that point in your life and not make a mistake and not make somebody mad or whatever. And so, it was good for me because, like we talked about, like it was the first time I'd lived away from home and to kind of just get there and have that, kind of expectation, I think was good.
That's the word. I think what I wish I would have started off with all that by saying is you clearly come from a great home. I don't know your mom. I've probably never even really, dealt with your dad, but I of course know who he is. You clearly come from a great upbringing. You come from a good family. And so there's that expectation that you just grow up with, where it's kind of always in your head above you knowing, hey, when you go out into the real world, you're going to have to take care of things. And if you share a room or a house with someone, you got to do this and this and this. And so finally this, with Corey Tucker and Robert Smith, this is all of a sudden at 100 miles an hour, boom.
Yeah.
Oh, that expectation is now reality. And it's not just an expectation, it's a responsibility. And it sounds like, you probably did a pretty good job of embracing it. I tried mightily to get in touch with Robert. I sent him 2 Facebook messages. I even added him on Facebook, which I do not like to do with people I don't know. He's accepted the friend request, still has not looked at the messages. So hopefully, knowing my luck, I'll walk out of here and he'll reply to me wanting to talk about you. But I don't know anything about your time with him. How long did you stay with Cheddar?
Just through the end of that year. So I moved in like May, probably of 2017, and then through the race season, so like 5-6 months.
Okay.
So
oh wow, so you 3 months at Corey's, 5-6 months at Roberts. You bounced around pretty quick.
Yeah, and then I came back to Indy for the winter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to live with your parents?
Just to stay at mom and dad's and figure out if I wanted to go back to North Carolina more than anything.
What went into that decision?
Well, I mean, part of it was that part of the reason I went back was because I was all freelance at that time. So like I was making no money. Like, I wasn't working. The NASCAR season was done. So I just, moved. I came back here because I didn't have really that much stuff, and it was just easier to just stay at mom and dad's for free.
Yeah, because you have no income stream. And was was Roberts, where you were living at the end of the season, was that like because I know you said you were paying him, you were a tenant there. Was he just like loose with it? Hey, month to month, whenever you're done, you're out.
Like we just talked about it, and I told him like kind of before the end of the year, I was like, I'm probably just going to go home for the winter. He's like, okay, well, like, we'll just, talk to me when we get ready to go back again in the spring, and we'll figure it out. So yeah, like I came back here because all my friends were back here still, and I, it was free living, free roof over my head back here. So
what gets you to go back to Charlotte?
Well, I'm trying to think. So that would have been 2018.
Yeah, going into 18.
I had kind of gotten like a little bit bigger schedule with MRN, and I had gotten a little bit more of like a set schedule of like, okay, you're going to start doing they were NASCAR K&N races at the time. They're like ARCA East, ARCA West races now. But I was fortunate because they were being produced by NASCAR Productions, but they aired on NBCSN.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I think I found a stand-up of you interviewing Harvick before a K&N race.
I think the very first race I ever did.
At Bakersfield?
Yeah. That one was in 2018. Yeah, so that was a little later. But Harvick was super gracious to me. Like,
and then does that relationship with Cheddar, because he's his car chief on the Cup side, does that play into like not just with Kevin, but being able to have like at least a little bit of like familiarity with someone?
Yeah, I honestly don't even know if Kevin knew that I was living with Cheddar or had lived with Cheddar. My dad and Kevin they always had a really good relationship when my dad worked. So I do know because the very first K&N race I ever did was at Sonoma in 2017, and Kevin was racing that. And I do know my dad texted Kevin and was like, hey, my boy is going to be doing the pits for this K&N race. Like, don't be Kevin Harvick to him.
Rough him up a little bit.
Or
not.
Treat, be, just so, more so just so, because I was never going to go up and be like, hey, I'm Vince Welch's kid.
Yeah.
But like, so Kevin was like always, like, he was always super gracious to me. Like, and then when we did that Bakersfield race, it was the same thing. It was like, he was like, super nice to me and just helpful.
he was. But I also think so. I was going to say, he does great in that interview, and when you do what we do, you look at interviews a lot differently. You look at just how the person acts in the interview, and Kevin, just like Tony Stewart, is very much known for being pretty tough. I think sometimes still. And I was going to say, oh, he was great in that interview, but again, I think that comes back to maybe he knew who you were and he knew your dad well, but again, you don't come to him with some question like, what's it like racing here at Bakersfield? You know what I mean? I don't remember the question verbatim, but you kind of spell out a 10, 15-second setup, and then you ask him a thoughtful question, which I think anybody who gets interviewed for a living, those guys, they've got a microphone in their face constantly. They're tired of hearing the same question, or they're tired of hearing lazy questions. And I've told you this before, but you are my inspiration for what it comes to asking thorough questions, because when I started listening to Rip the Fence, as I was getting ready to announce USAC, and I'm just trying to learn the sport, I've told you this, but I would listen to those interviews before I knew you, before I knew Tyler, and I would listen to you ask a question, and whether it's Jack Hewitt or Jeff Gordon or whoever, I would learn something in your question before the guest ever got a chance to answer, which is where everybody thinks you learned something. Yes, I learned something from their answer, but you did such a good job of informing people and asking thorough questions that I would learn something from this guy who's asking it, and then I'd learn a lot more from the guest. But I think you just do an incredible job with that.
Well, thanks. And, it was, getting to interview a lot of the guys I interviewed early on in my career, and even on Rip the Fence, but like Harvick, or like I did a couple things with Speed Sport where I had to interview Tony, and guys where it's like, if you ask them a dumb question, they're going to give you a dumb answer,
or they're going to rip your head off.
Yeah. Like, they're probably going to be a little more gracious because you're like, they don't know you that well and you're a new guy, but like, what the possibility is if you throw up some, lazy question. And that was something my dad always drilled into me. He's like, ask a question, don't just like make a statement at somebody, ask a question. So early on, when I get the opportunity to interview those guys that were intimidating, like Kevin or Tony or even Jeff Gordon.
Yes.
Like, just being prepared and asking good questions, I think goes a long way with those guys.
Well, again, asking a question. If I hear one more, well, tell us about that. It's just like, why are they obligated to tell you anything? Reporter A, B, and C. Like, ask them a question. Again, it's hopefully not a lazy question, but and I've listened to a lot of what Marty Smith at ESPN says about research, and again, like you just said, if you come in with a lazy question, be prepared for a lazy answer. And then I meant to bring this up to you when we first started talking about Cheddar, but of course, leave it to me to put it at the very end when it should have been at the start. Does the opportunity to stay with Cheddar come from your dad just knowing him in the garage and just saying, "Hey, my kid's getting settled in Charlotte, but he needs a new place," and it kind of just comes as like a friendship sort of deal?
I think so. Like I think my dad just, I don't know who he asked or how many people he asked, that just was like, hey, like, he's down there. If you hear of anybody that has a room for rent or a house for rent or whatever, Dillon's looking. And I think Cheddar was like, well, I got a kid that's in there now that's moving out at the beginning of May. You can just move in there. So, and then there was another girl that was living in there that was a sprint car fan that is from Iowa. So and Cheddar likes sprint car racing. So like we all kind of bonded over that too, it was just a good fit. It was everybody.
What was she doing down there?
She was working in PR at the time.
Do you remember who it was?
Yeah, it was Dana Hazelhoon. I don't even know if that's how I say your last name right, but everybody knows Dana. So so Dana and I were roommates with Cheddar for 5 or 6 months.
And then, kind of same thing. And I wish I would have gotten the chance to talk to him and learn a little bit more about your time staying there. But again, in the spirit of, hey, it wasn't just a couch, it wasn't just a guest room, and you probably didn't only talk about racing every day of those 5 months you lived with them. What can you say you took from sharing a living space? Because that's the thing, is like, when you live with someone, you live with them. You see how they eat, how they drink, how they go about their day, how they walk, how they talk, and if you're smart and you enjoy how they do those things, you can incorporate that into your lifestyle. So did anything stand out about your time with Robert that you maybe employ today or you look back on? It doesn't have to be good, doesn't have to be bad.
Well, I think like Corey, Cheddar was really successful and really driven and motivated, and like he'd come home from the shop, and like you get this kind of inside perspective on the how the sport works that not everybody gets access to. And
totally.
I think it just shows you what it takes to like be successful over an extended period of time and like make it in that industry. And I think sometimes, this is true of any industry, any walk of life, but like if you move to a new place and you don't have a good support system around you of people that are kind of guiding you or just influencing you, not necessarily consciously telling you, this is how you do this or this is what you shouldn't do, but just people that you can subconsciously observe and kind of put, guidelines or guardrails on your own life. I think that was what I took from both of those guys, is not anything. They weren't like trying to be my dad or mentor me or whatever, but they were both very successful, very good at their jobs. They'd been in the sport for a long time. They were people that I respected because I could tell how hard they worked, consistently to perform at a high level. And I think that just showed me that, like, you don't just luck into this. Like you gotta put in the time. You got to be dedicated to the craft. You got to constantly be trying to get better. And that goes for being an engineer or being a broadcaster. And so I think that was what I took from both of those guys.
I like a lot how you say that, where it was like subconsciously. And to me, it kind of sounds like osmosis. Like if I'm around a successful person long enough, they never have to look at me and go, this is what time you wake up to be successful. This is when you eat to be successful. You just kind of see it. And slowly, again, if you're intelligent and you are able to look at the world around you bigger than just your own body, you can go, oh, maybe I should try that.
Right.
And it's never a, Dillon, this is what you do.
Yeah.
This is how you get there, which again, sounds like probably your upbringing with your dad, where your dad never said, hey, to be a successful broadcaster, you got to do it like this and this. It was more, oh, he does this thing, I'm going to do a little bit of that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I think like that's true of, of race car drivers, like you hear guys all the time that just were around these guys that were legends of the sport or just were good at it, and then they get in a car and they're good too, or they're they improve because they're just around the right people. And I'm thankful for both of those guys, because I think if I'd been living with somebody who was, even somebody who was like my age, who was living like a 21-year-old, like, it maybe doesn't give you the structure you need to succeed, at a pretty critical, at least for me, critical time in my life, where I was kind of like on the fence of like what I want to even do with my life. And I think having both of those guys there to kind of show me just how to be an adult.
Well, you go from the sage wisdom and lifestyle choices of Corey Tucker and Robert Cheddar Smith. Why Cheddar? Do you know the origins?
He's from Wisconsin.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the only reason why, but that's what nobody calls him Robert Smith. Everybody calls him Cheddar.
Maybe that's why he's not replying to my messages. I hit him up with a Robert. Hi, Robert, and I should have gone with sup, Cheddar.
Maybe.
So you go from living with those two guys, and then is it straight from there to? And I'm laughing because the setup you just gave, was it straight from those two to living with Tyler?
So yeah, I went after I left Cheddar's. I came back here for the winter, and then I didn't live with Tyler that long, only like a couple weeks basically, because my apartment in Charlotte that I was getting for the first time by myself wasn't available until like March or something. So like I had to go back to Charlotte because I had to fly from Charlotte to go to Daytona for Speed Weeks. But needed to be down there early for stuff. So I like lived with Tyler for like 2 weeks.
And again, like that's the thing, like the goal of what I'm trying to do with the show is it doesn't have to be all Robert Smiths and Corey Tuckers.
Right.
It's not who opened up their home and made you a month-long, multiple month-long, year-long tenant. It can very much just be, I literally was just waiting for an apartment or a house to get finished, being built, opened up, whatever. And it's these people that throw us lifelines and say, hey, you need to be in Charlotte, but the place you're signing a lease on doesn't open up for a month. Come stay with me for a few weeks. And it sounds like that was the basis of the relationship with the one and only Heavy Lunch.
Yeah, and I will tell you that living with Tyler was not like living with Cheddar or Corey Tucker. It was a little bit different vibe there. But I love Tyler. But
well, I have notes, but I want you to keep going because I did get a chance to speak. We're referring to Tyler Burnett of Flow Racing royalty, content producer extraordinaire, but he's not just been at Flow. He was with you at MRN. I think he probably did some NASCAR production stuff. But I'm going to pull up a little bit of Tyler and I's conversation, but I want you to, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I can only imagine. I want you to tell me what he said, because I'm more curious what he has to say than anything I'm going to say about living with him.
Well, first, before I tell you what he said, you've already told me the story, but it absolutely needs to be on record. I introduced him as Heavy Lunch.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how Spridge used to refer to Tyler.
Yeah.
When him and I would speak, he would always tell me about Heavy Lunch, Tyler Burnett, and the rules he would set for time. He told me a terrible story about a time they were at 34, I think, in Burlington, Iowa. And I don't even know how far Burlington is from Knoxville. Do you?
I don't.
Well, if I remember the story correctly, which knowing me, I'm sure Spridge will let me know I didn't remember it correctly. But he told me some story about they were racing at Burlington and they got canceled or they got rained out or something. And all Tyler wanted to do, well, this was a time when he was the USAC announcer. All Tyler wanted to do was go to Knoxville because it was maybe it was a prelim night for the Nationals. Maybe it was a weekly show. I don't remember, but Tyler just kept begging and begging and begging. Can we go to Knoxville? Can we go to Knoxville? Can I borrow the rental car? Can we go to Knoxville? And I guess Spridge and a whole bunch of the other USAC guys were in on it. Nope, we're not going. You're staying here in the hotel room all night. You're going to bed at 8 p.m., whatever. And then Burnett's just like a sad dog. And I think Spridge finally goes, hey, get in the car. We're going to Knoxville. And Tyler's like, whoopee.
I've heard that story
or
too.
Something like that. But tell the listening audience where Heavy Lunch comes from, because I freaking love this story.
Well, it was, funnily enough, I think today is this guy's birthday. Eli Gold, who was the longtime announcer for the Alabama Crimson Tide, used to work at MRN, longtime MRN announcer.
Iconic voice.
Yeah, great voice. One of the greatest in sports. I believe he was the one that gave Tyler that nickname. So, and I wasn't there, so I don't remember the exact story, but, it was obviously something about Tyler being, thick boy. So I think Eli was the one that gave him that nickname.
That's sick, because
which is a badge of honor, truthfully.
True. I thought Heavy Lunch was just something Spridge called him, right?
No,
at USAC. And when you told me that Eli Gold, one of the most well-known voices in American sports, calls Tyler Burnett Heavy Lunch.
Yeah.
if I were him, I'd get that tattooed on me somewhere.
I should have checked with him if it was, but I'm almost positive it was Eli.
This isn't coming out for months, so you check. If it's wrong, we'll just scrap all this and get to what's important, which is him telling me that living with Dillon Welch included a lot of things. One thing he kept coming back to here, and I want to make sure I say it correctly because I couldn't hear him. I didn't think I was hearing him correctly. He said that you and him, while living together, frequented a location quite often called T's Fat Parrot.
That's the name. Yep.
T's Fat Parrot.
Yep. T was the guy that owned it.
I was going to say, my name starts with a T.
Yeah.
And I'm sure somebody out there's called me a fat parrot, but I don't know this establishment. And I lived in North Carolina for a little bit trying to chase the same dream you did. So I already know, but what is T's Fat Parrot?
So Fat Parrot is this like biker bar basically off 485, which is the interstate loop there.
A place I can see you and Burnett hanging out at a biker bar. When I think of you two, I think.
Yeah. We had this other buddy named Robbie that was like our spot. Like it was like less than 5 minutes from Tyler's house. So Tyler used to live in Charlotte on this awesome property that it was like multiple acres, had a big like shop barn thing, room for bonfire. Like we used to just go hang out there and drink beer all the time.
Wow. MRN was paying him really well then.
Well, it was his mother-in-law's house. So so
I figured.
Yeah, but it was cool. It was a cool spot. And then, we'd go hang out there at Tyler's for a little bit or go to Fat Parrot and go back to Tyler's. But it was like a biker bar. They had karaoke. They had a little outdoor place where you could play they had, outdoor games and stuff. You could play like, beer pong and that sort of stuff. But we went to that place a lot. And that was just what we did. Like
he said it was a lot of karaoke.
A lot of karaoke.
Which, that's the first time I met you was we were singing karaoke in Tulsa at the Chili Bowl at Lenny's.
Oh, Lenny's.
And that was, I just looked over and all of a sudden I'm singing Neon Moon probably with you, Spridge, Logan Seavey, who I now rent a home from here in Indianapolis. Chris Wyndham's up there, and it was either, I know Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was up there, and I'm just standing there, and this is like 2020, maybe. Yeah, probably the Chili Bowl going into 20, and I'm just like, oh, look at me. I knew who you were, but we'd never spoken, and like, you or Spridge are up there in a Pacers hoodie. Jeff Taylor from Rockwell Security, a proud partner of this program, videotaped the whole thing. I'll have to drop it in here somewhere.
You should.
If we really, well, that won't play too well for the audio audience. But hey, YouTube views, this is what we're working on. We're up there at Lenny's. That's the first time now I finally remember that you and I meet, but can you remember the song that Tyler Burnett says you would really rock out to at karaoke?
That I would sing?
Yeah, at the Fat Parrot. Also, if that couch is getting low, we can put some air in it.
I can't tell if I'm sinking into it or if it's sinking.
I mean, it
itself.
looks fine. You're just kind of leaning, but it also might be sinking. So we can put air in
as long as it looks good to you.
You look great,
man. I honestly don't. I don't know. I mean, he always sings Piano Man.
Really,
that's his karaoke song, and he's very good at it.
I would not have guessed that.
Yeah. I don't know if I ever really had one that I sang there.
Oh, he says you do. It was by a man he has three names. His name is David Allen Coe.
Oh, yeah, the David Allen Coe. Yeah, you never even called me by my name.
Which is, at the song, he goes, you never even, in the song it talks about, you just call me Darlin'.
Yeah, you don't have to call me Darlin', Dave Darland.
Yes,
yeah.
Okay, that's what I was hoping you would remember, that you would find a way to work in.
Well, the biggest memory I have of him and I singing that song was at Chili Bowl, was at the old Lenny's.
In the hotel?
In the hotel. And because it was one of the nights at Chili Bowl, and we were like just ripping that song, and the whole bar was singing along with us. It was fun. I kind of forgot that we used to sing that at Fat Parrot.
He said you guys helped keep the lights on at Fat Parrot, definitely, for a very long time. Raved about a lot of trips with you to go get some fancy milkshakes at Cookout.
Yeah, a lot of Cookout. There was a Cookout down the road from that. So usually after we went to the bar, we went to Cookout, got some milkshakes.
Got to replenish yourself after entertaining the masses. And lot of worked on your golf game, he said, hitting golf balls into the woods behind the house.
Yeah, so he lived, his property bordered a golf course.
He didn't say that.
Really crappy golf course in Charlotte. But we'd go out there and hit golf balls into the woods, basically.
Do you remember any late night lawn mowing?
I literally was going to bring that up as well. That is maybe one of my all-time favorite Tyler Burnett stories. That we probably had went to Fat Parrot and came back to his house. It was like 4 a.m. and Tyler decides he's
that's not late night. That's very early morning lawn mowing.
Tyler decides he's going to mow his lawn, and so he gets on his riding mower and makes like 2 passes and throws a belt off of it or something.
Oh no!
And so pushes it back into his shop and decides he's going to fix it right there. So I've got a picture somewhere I'll have to find of him laying on the ground trying to fix his mower at
4:15 in the morning.
Yeah.
After probably a couple sodas?
Yeah, more than a couple probably.
What was the drink of choice for Dillon Welch at the Fat Parrot?
We always just drank beer there.
Okay.
Yeah, you didn't want to mess probably too much with the
cocktails,
the liquor drinks there. Not really. It just wasn't really that kind of place. Like it's probably just a little safer just to get a beer.
Well, the bartender might look at you and go, "Buddy, we got Miller and we got Coors.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know about this whole Crown and Coke."
No,
you're
yeah, it's just quicker.
Yeah.
Quicker and easier just to get a beer there.
What's the Dillon Welch beer of choice today?
I'm a Coors Light guy these days, which I've really kind of always been. Like I drank Bud Light a little bit in college, but I've really kind of always been a Coors Light guy.
Okay, from the great state of Colorado. But if you want a real beer from Colorado, I recommend you try its older brother, Coors Banquet.
Well, yeah, this time of year especially, it's great. It's banquet weather.
Oh, I like that.
So
if this is banquet weather, I don't know. People can see it on the video here. We're sitting with our hands in our pockets, and we're inside a suite at the Indianapolis Raceway Park, and we've been in here. You had to sit here for 30 minutes while I went home to get my SD cards. We're recording for quite a while, but it is not warming up in here at all.
My toes are cold again.
Can you feel them at least?
I barely.
Oh man, you're a trooper for doing this.
The rest of me is fine. It's honestly just my toes.
Well, it's funny because I looked at you about 20 minutes ago and I'm like, oh God, he's got his hands in his pockets. This is terrible. And then I realized I've got my hands in my pockets.
I truthfully didn't even realize that this quarter zip I have on had a full pocket on the front. I thought they were just side pockets. So I'm just sitting here chilling. Hanging out.
Again, this won't come out for a long time, but it's Monday, like December 15th, I think. And Indy's just gotten hit by like one of the worst snows I've seen in probably my whole time living here. You've lived your whole life here. I don't know where it ranks for you, but I think at the time of coming upstairs to the top level of the tower here at IRP, it was like 10, maybe 9 degrees.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If that.
And then that's before you get up to the top where the wind's whipping. And I was setting up for this and I couldn't feel my toes, and your feet are back to being cold. So we might have to take a heater break here in a moment, but Tyler did talk about moving you into the apartment when your place finally did become ready. So it was a real pain in the butt. 3rd-story walk-up, it sounds like.
Yep.
He throwing pillows.
Yep, I remember that.
Up a couple levels.
That was when I was moving out. That was at the end of that year when I was moving out. Yeah, we were just we were throwing stuff off the balcony, and once Tyler was at the bottom catching stuff and putting it in the U-Haul.
Good.
We were throwing stuff off the top.
Hopefully no furniture, just
light stuff.
Linens and lamps and small stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Not fragile.
Yes.
Okay, so, again, to keep with the theme of like, all right, you lived with this guy. You probably did a lot more than just, sing karaoke and talk racing. Does anything from your time living with Tyler Burnett show up in your life today that you think about and go, man, I'm glad I experienced that?
Well, Tyler's one of my best friends still to this day. And obviously we started the podcast, that year, shortly after I moved out was kind of when he and I started brainstorming that idea to start Rip the Fence, which, truthfully, I think for both of us was like a really big part of both of our careers. So those ideas, usually were brainstormed usually at nights when we were at Fat Parrot or when we were just hanging out, at his house or whatever. Like I said, like we had fun, and that was good for me too, because like we talked about, I lived with those guys that were older and that were adults, but like I was still a kid and I was still like wanting to have fun and do stuff and be social and meet people. And so living with Tyler was fun because like, he kind of got me out of my shell a little bit and, showed me around Charlotte and some of the cool spots and stuff to do. And ultimately when I moved in with him, and then moved into that apartment, that was kind of like what set me on the path of like staying there. So, having him open up his house for me when I came back, was a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like that was kind of like maybe the last piece in the puzzle for you, and definitely the couch surfing and the guest room riding. Get out of Burnett's place, and you finally have your own spot, and then I'm guessing it's just been perfectly clear sailing, and it's just been smooth and never getting surprise text messages about gigs you think you have or anything like that, right?
Well, it's yeah. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I get a surprise text today while we were recording about not doing a gig I thought I was doing. So that's the business.
Yeah, that stinks, by the way, because one of my favorite photos from that event was last year when I got to do it in a different role than you. Was a photo in Victory Lane of you.
That's right. That is a good. I know what picture you're talking about.
Yeah, I really. My girlfriend got that photo, and I just think that's cool because it's you and me, and we're both in different roles. We're both holding microphones, and it's just a cool photo. I'm gonna have you sign it for me later if I ever get it printed. But yeah, I mean, the broadcast world. I say this all the time. I feel like announcers and race car drivers are very similar because just the spaces we work in are limited. There's only so many steering wheels, and there's only so many microphones out there. And no matter how good you are at holding either one of those, there's thousands of people that sit in these grandstands and watch at home every day and go, well, I could do it better.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I
totally.
mean, it's just it's a cutthroat business to work in.
It is. It's and the climate of it now, is so different because there's so many ways for people to create content and to have a voice or have an opinion, and it's not but it's not diminished, the role of like a television or somebody like yourself. I mean, I consider you to be a television broadcaster on reporting on racing. But it's just different now. I mean, it's different than it was even, 5-6 years ago.
Think how your dad looks at it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and it's true of other industries, it just is ever changing, and you got to keep up. And, but I certainly feel grateful and thankful that, it's all happened for me the way it has. Like there was a couple things that happened with guys, frankly, losing their jobs or getting fired that kind of opened up some opportunities for me that may not have been there otherwise if everybody had stayed on the path they were on. And that kind of stuff just sometimes has to happen. I think that's God at work kind of opening doors for you sometimes. And, but I'm grateful for everybody that has played a part in, allowing me to live out my dream, because it's the job I've always dreamed of having.
Well, again, it's the similarities I think are just eerie between driving a race car and talking about them with a microphone, because sometimes a guy can be just driving his brains out and doing really well and maybe even getting the results, but a sponsor backs out, a team loses funding, and it doesn't matter who's driving that car, that guy's out.
Right.
And same thing in broadcast. You'll see, Alan Bestwick, one of the best voices in IndyCar racing ever, staple of the Indianapolis 500. IndyCar does a new deal. ABC, ESPN's out. NBC, to your benefit, comes in, and you end up having a tenure in IndyCar. But my point is, a guy like Alan Bestwick, who everybody associated with the 500 forever, due to no fault of his own, but just by being employed by a group that lost their contract, is no longer a part of that sport. So I just, sometimes I don't know if people understand the kind of the fragility of what we do and what drivers, and again, anybody can lose their job. I'm not trying to make it out like we're up here walking on a tightrope that no one else does, but there's just sometimes so many things, the cross breezes in our world are a lot quicker, I feel like, than some others.
No, you're totally right. And there, it's stuff as simple as like turnover at, executive positions or people that are above even the people that you respond directly to that just want to make changes, want to do things differently, or different ideas or philosophies on how things should be done, different, people that they think should be on the shows. Like, it's, contract negotiation time every year is very stressful because you just never know. And it's like, this is all I know how to do.
Yeah.
So, it's pressure to perform every single time I'm on the air because I've got to have this job.
Yeah.
Everybody has to have a job, but it's like I can't go just do something else.
Well, I was hoping you'd say that, because it's not just I got to have this job in the sense of I got to pay rent and I got to buy groceries. It's I got to have this job.
Right.
I could not imagine what I would do if I didn't do this, right? And that's why when I lose USAC in 21, I'm just like, I have no idea where my life goes from here.
Yeah.
And you and Blake Anderson and a lot of other people were very influential in that time, which I'm grateful for your consideration to help me through that. But it's a crazy lifestyle. And again, just like being a race car driver, I think it's very addicting doing this, where it's weird to come to an event. It's fun sometimes, but it's strange to come to an event and sit in the stands when you know you might have had the opportunity to announce it, or you could have been reporting on it, or you could have been just in it versus paying to be in it. I just, and that's probably just selfishness on some guys' parts, me being definitely one of them. But yeah, it's an addicting thing to do this kind of work, I think.
To that point, I went and sat in the stands at the Indianapolis 500 this year after working it for the last 3. It was very, very hard for me.
I cannot.
Yeah.
I have a hard time sitting in that race just because I'm like, I want to do this.
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near the level of doing that. And then for you to have worked that event, the largest single-day sporting event in the world, and then you're on the sidelines.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very hard. It was very hard for me. My dad and I talked about that because, he had a period where he worked, I don't even know how many, 15 or so consecutive Indy 500s, and then he went and he had to do the Coke 600. And he's like, it was different for me because I was still working. Like I was working that weekend, that day.
Right.
But I was just like a race fan. And like the year before had been down there in the nitty gritty of it. And like, so it's hard. It is hard. I think it's probably hard as a race car driver, you're making these comparisons. Like, I think that's probably why guys have a hard time retiring is because they don't want to sit in the stands because they miss that, whatever it is that drives you, that bug that gets in you about, that's just the racing bug. It's hard to do anything different.
Well, and again, at the end of the day, it's a lot of complaining over here, but how grateful or how fortunate are we, how blessed are we to have a job where you're distraught when you lose it and you lose an opportunity in it, whereas there's millions of people, and we know thousands of them who get up every day to go to a job they don't particularly care for, and they kind of hope they'd lose, not because they don't want the income, but because they can't imagine getting up and turning their car over in 10-degree weather at 7 a.m. to get on the road by 7:30 to get to a job by 8 to work till 4 or 5. It's just,
I think I had that thought the other day because, the racing season is a grind. You understand that as a guy that, travels as much as you do. And like you get to these stretches where you're like, oh my gosh, like I want it to be done. Like I'm just ready to be done. But like there always seems like there's something that comes along that kind of just keeps motivating you. And it's even though you go to the same races or the same events every year, it's like they're different every year. And so it keeps you going. I can't imagine being a guy at a 9-to-5 office job who every single day, every week, it's the same.
Yeah.
You don't have anything to look forward to. It's like this time of year. It's like, it's cold, it's miserable here in Indiana, but it's like, I'm so excited because like we just got through PRI, which is like always kind of a fun weekend. Like even if you don't go to the show, it's a fun weekend. Like it's about to be shootout time and Chili Bowl time. And then it's like, then the rest of the race season is here. It's like, there's always something to just kind of keep you going, keep you excited.
Yeah. There's a cyclicalness to our job where seasons turn over.
Yeah.
Whereas, man, if you and I'm not trying to be corny here, the real heroes and the people I look up to are the folks like my dad who get up and go to a job every day that he can't stand.
Yeah.
And it's dark when you leave and it's dark when you come home.
Yep.
And it's probably,
I can't imagine.
Yeah. It's, so we're very fortunate. And that's why I've wanted to do something like this with you for so long, because I'm a fan of how you go about what we do. You do it at a very different level. But it's fun to watch NASCAR races or IndyCar races and be like, damn, not only do I know that guy, but I know how hard he works at it. And I think, again, I'm fortunate in the sense that like, I know your job. You have friends and family who watch you and just go, oh, that's Dillon. That's great. But they don't maybe understand how much you put into it. So that's always been a fun part for me to watch whatever broadcast it is, whether it's one you're on or any of my friends that do this kind of work. It's cool to get to see the results of your guys' hard work. And I hope, you've sent me some text during high limit broadcasts that mean the world to me, where you're like, damn, I just learned something. And it's from something I ask or I bring up. So it means a lot. I kind of try to wrap some of these up with the couch and the guest room topic here with like just some rapid fires. And you'd think by the fourth or fifth one of these, I'd write them down. So I always am asking the same ones, but
well, that's the fun in that.
Well, as you've seen with this production here today, we're not exactly
not buttoned up.
My production crew is just
they're on vacation. It's a union break.
Well, they don't take things real seriously, as I'm sure you've learned here today. So we'll just start with it. And these are your attitude on these topics. It's not necessarily what do you do, and if you'd like to share your by that I mean what have you done with Robert Smith, with Corey Tucker, with Tyler Burnett. If you want to tell stories about these topics in that regard, I'm all ears. But these are just kind of some rapid fires. When you're a guest in someone's house, first one, shoes on or off. The first time you come into someone's house, how do you play that as a house guest?
My instinct is always shoes off because I'm a shoes off guy in my own home. So
Okay.
I will always err on the side of taking them off.
Okay. And I think that's most people, but you have some guys where you have the extremes where it's like, take them off outside, which, what are we protecting?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't have a rug down or something. But then it's also like, there's people who go to sleep in their shoes. They're not on this show.
Good.
Next up, when you're a house guest, and again, this can be an instance of what you did with any of those guys you mentioned, or it's just your point of view on it today. When you come in, is it when you're staying, you're a house guest, you're spending the night, you're on the couch, you're in a guest room, whatever. Is it try to affect the temperature of the area you're sleeping in to make it desirable for you, or are you like a hands-off, whatever they have it set at, I'm not going to mess with it even if I'm unbearably hot, unbearably cold? How do you play the temperature game when you're a house guest?
Well,
do you ask?
I would ask, yeah, but thankfully, both of those places had bedroom fans, and they all kept the house at a respectable temperature. So I never actually had that issue, thankfully. But I am a sleep with the fan on guy. Even as cold as it is out right now, I got to have a fan on.
You got to.
Yeah.
Is it more for noise or for temperature?
Yeah. Well, both. I can't sleep hot. I'd rather be cold.
No way. That's the first thing we do when we check into a new hotel. I room with Brian Walker right now, and it's straight to the thermostat as low as it'll go.
See, well, so I'm not that extreme.
Well, you're not as big as me. That's the difference.
Well, fair. My window is like 66, 68 in there somewhere.
That's a friendly window to operate in.
Yeah.
I've gotten a few comfort inns and suites that have gotten down to 55 on the thermostat. Well, brother, you're sitting here holding your hands in your pockets. Nothing's too cold for you. You've done this whole interview. You might not have feeling in your left foot.
Back to a college story and talking about being poor in college, or just being stupid is more like it. We would go, before we'd leave our house to go to the bars in college, we thought, well, we'll just shut the heat off. Nobody's here, and then you go to the bar, you come home, it's like, 15 degrees outside. You don't think to turn the heat on. But I used to have this electric fireplace in my bedroom. So I'd go in my bedroom. It was cold in the bedroom. I'd just flip the fireplace on, and my bedroom would be, nice and warm and cozy and comfortable. And then I would, in the morning, wake up and walk outside, and it's like Antarctica out there. You see your breath. I think the lowest I ever saw the thermostat was at 46.
Oh my God! In Muncie, Indiana. Let's remind people, you didn't go to college in it wasn't like Dry Tortugas or anything.
No, it wasn't like San Diego.
We'll just kill the heat for this 2 hours we're at the bar.
Save us like $2.
Dillon Welch's Frugal Networks.
Stupid.
If you're looking to hire a frugal reporter, he will save you money on the flight. I did not know that about you.
Pretty dumb.
That's good to hear you, though. I like that you discerned between poor and stupid, because sometimes I think I'm just really, really broke, and it turns out I'm just dumb.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's an important distinction.
So this is one that I think I've talked, I did this one with Levi. I did one with the guy who first ever gave me a microphone. He's in his 60s. When you talk to older, the older generation, they didn't have this problem, but I think you and I know I'm terrible at this. When you come in and you're a house guest and you're staying for a few nights, a few weeks, whatever, everybody today's got a smart TV. You've got a remote that in a moment's notice can pull up YouTube, and I'm always guilty of YouTube. What's the viewing experience like when Dillon Welch is a guest? Is it whatever everyone else is watching, whatever's on in the living room, we'll sit, we'll hang out, we'll watch that, it's fine? Or is it a lot of, hey, let me show you something. I got to show you this really quick, and it just take over the remote? No,
usually I'll try to just let them, if we're watching TV, let whoever it is watch whatever they want to watch. So I don't even go to my grandpa's house and try and take the remote from him and tell him what I want to watch. It's like we're up there, and he doesn't miss a Cincinnati Reds game if he's home.
Nice.
So, and that was a big battle this spring when I was up there, and I was wanting to watch the Pacers and he was wanting to watch the Reds. That was tough after a little while.
Oh, we're talking about the farm?
Yeah, at the farm. Yeah.
Okay.
So, no, if I'm in somebody else's place, I'll let them do their thing.
See, I am very different. It's always, hey, let me show you this Loud Pedal Indiana Sprint Week 2015 video.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, it's been 3 hours. And I'm I pick my spots. I don't do it with people who are could not be less interested in what I do. It's typically, people like yourself, Toby Balboan, people in racing, you get them and you just show them stuff that you think they'll be interested in. And then I try to read it and go, oh, they are looking at their phone a lot. We should go back to Dancing with the Stars. But
at least you have the situational awareness to realize that.
And that's, in all seriousness, that's something that being a house guest has taught me in spades, is you just have to like pay attention to what's going on around you.
Yeah.
Because I've stayed with couples, I've stayed with families, and there's sometimes where those discussions that are for family start, and you go, it's like that SpongeBob meme. All right, I'm going to head out. And you just get up and you go to your room. Yeah. You go to a different spot on the couch. You get out of there. When you've stayed at someone's house and they've given you a nice inflatable couch to stay on, and it's gone down in air, but they filled it back up for you, and you're getting ready to check out from your stay. How do you say thanks? Is it a trip to a local restaurant? Is it, hey, let me make you a meal in your own home? Something I've been dumb enough to try.
That is brave.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think we went to dinner with Corey. Just went out somewhere. The thing is too, though, is that when I was living with these guys, I didn't have money to like go buy them anything.
Yeah, and so that's why it's like it doesn't have to be how you did it, but like today, like if you come over and crash.
I'm a big now. I do try to get people like restaurants to like gift cards to restaurants and that sort of thing. Like I have a couple neighbors at my house that I'm trying to sell in North Carolina that have been like just huge helps to me through that whole process. And so like I need to get them a gift card for Christmas.
That's the first one of these I've heard where it's a gift card. I like that because it's kind of like, hey, listen, I've spent enough time with you. You're probably sick of me.
Yeah, exactly.
I might be sick of you. I want to say thanks and treat you to a nice meal.
Well, and that way it's like they can do it on their own time when they want to do it. Like,
and they don't have to worry about talking to you even more.
Yeah, they're just they're by themselves. They can do whatever they want to do. Yeah.
Well, I like that a lot. That's actually a really pro move. Like, hey, we've spent enough time together.
Some people like look down on gift cards. I think they're a great gift.
It's free money.
Yeah, exactly.
It's free money.
Yeah.
And there's that obligation when you get cash to just put it towards something you don't want.
Right.
Rent.
Right.
Debt.
Yeah.
Legal fees. But instead it's like, no, you're going to eat at Carrabba's tonight.
You have to.
You are you're going to go out and enjoy McDonald's on me this evening. I like that though. That's the gift card.
Yeah. It works for me. I don't know. Nobody's ever complained about it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would certainly recommend not doing what I like how you described it as brave. Don't try to make people food in their own homes.
That's brave.
Man, you don't know where anything is.
Yeah.
You don't know how to put anything back.
Yeah.
If you're me, you're not a big cleaning up after yourself guy.
No, that's their problem.
Exactly. Well, I did just make you steaks.
Yeah.
So you clean up. It's a terrible way to go about things. I don't recommend it.
I think that's good advice.
Yeah. If anybody's learned anything from this, it's don't try to be like Tony in any way. Certainly don't try to prepare your friends' meals in their kitchens. Just take them out, or be like Dillon Welch, buy them a gift card.
There we go.
I like that philosophy. Man, I could sit and talk to you about so much. There's so much about just the announcing and the broadcasting part of your life that I'd love to sit and go over, but I really enjoy hearing about how people come up and the people that help them get to where they're at. And if there's anybody I've left out or I haven't mentioned, I apologize. I hope I haven't. I know you mentioned, I don't know if you ever stayed with them. I know Spridge was a big part in your career, maybe not in the form of like a couch or a guest room, but learning a lot.
Yeah.
I know you spent a lot of time with Richie Murray.
Yeah.
Were you with him the night he hit that deer?
Yes, I was. I wasn't with him, but I did have to go like rescue them, basically. So
I've also heard that story. I thought.
Yeah. No, I've Spridge and Richie both. I had a lot of really great memories just going up and down the road with them from USAC, and that was a time in my life where I was young and naive about the ways of the world and life on the road, and having those guys to just share those moments with and memories with is something that I'll be grateful for forever.
Well, and you mentioned him at the very beginning, and I didn't say anything, and I would kick myself if I don't here. You talked about how gracious Pat Sullivan was. Man, you again want to talk about a guy who, in the world of announcers, where we've already talked about how cutthroat and how shitty it can be to work with people who do the same thing as you. I know I have had terrible experiences with track announcers in my USAC days. I'm sure you ran into the same brick walls I did. And for Pat, a guy to be in the position he's in and done what he's done, to not go, oh, I'm not getting out of the way for some kid who doesn't know the difference between a Crown car and a Sprint car by looking at them, or I'm not getting out of the way for some reporter on TV's kid, but instead to do the exact opposite and to not only get out of the way, but to actually lead you and help you and coach you and encourage you and calm you down when someone freaks out in the booth. And for Pat to be the guy that he is, man, I didn't want to not mention him because you hit on him earlier, and someone we're both fortunate to have worked with. I heard him say this once, what a gem of a man.
Well, and we'll do a little circular storytelling here to put a bow on this. When I was coming here to IRP as a kid, Pat and Brad Dickinson were the longtime voices of this place. And I never knew them when I was a kid, but I knew their voices and just always associated them. And like Pat would do stuff at the Speedway. Like you just always heard Pat's voice. And always just thought it was so cool that he was just the guy at a lot of these places. So on that weekend, and I'd known Pat for a long time. I'd met him eventually. And, but to get to work with him on that weekend was a cool moment for me. Because like I grew up listening to him here, and as we talked about, this place has meant so much to me. So to get to kind of share that first moment with Pat was a really cool thing for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. He is a gem of a man, and so are you. I really appreciate you just sitting down, dealing with a couch that was going flat, dealing with all the production woes that a one-man band incurs. But like I said, I could, and I'd really like to do more of your story when we get some time, because I think there's people who do what we do, and whether they do what we do or not, to know more about just your broadcasting and your opinion on things and how you go about things. I'd love to learn more about and have you back on, but it's cool to hear about the people who helped you get to where you are. And I guess the last question is, have you yet, or do you have plans to be the guy that opens up your couch, your guest room? Has anybody benefited from your generosity on their way up?
Well, nobody really that is in broadcasting. But from the time I moved to North Carolina, and got my own place, we've always had roommates.
Mm-hmm.
So there's people that still work in the industry now that moved to Charlotte that did the same thing I did, that wanted to make a go of it and needed a place to live. So that was because of those people that did that for me. That was always something for me that I was like willing to do and wanted to do if people needed a place. And because I think just not only having a place to live, but like just having like kind of a built-in friend group or built-in people to like just talk to and not be lonely and do stuff with. Like that was a big deal to me. And so I tried to do that, with the people that we had come, living at our house was, just understand that I was in that exact same position one time or at one time. And, so I have always had roommates. Like I said, I'm selling my house in North Carolina, but I had 3 kids living in there that are 21-year-old kids that work in late model racing that, we're all living there. So, when the next house I buy, if I'm in a position to open up my spare bedroom for somebody, I have no hesitation doing that.
That's the one of the several goals of this thing is I believe I'm not a big rah, we're all going to make it kind of guy, but I do believe that, the only thing separating some up and coming pit reporting, announcing go-kart track, quarter midget track kid from you and I, and I don't put me on the same level as you. I have a high regard for what you do, but where we're paid to go around to racetracks and talk, the only difference between you and me and the next kid coming up is someone gave us a chance.
Right. And
not only did they give us a chance, as you've discussed here today, as I'll discuss later, like, people have given us couches and guest rooms and food and transportation and all these things to help us achieve our goals. And I guess what I hope to express in this is, if you're chasing something, I don't care what it is, announcing, driving, being a professional, whatever it is you want to be, just keep going, because you never know who can help you.
Yep.
And you just never know who's just that one handshake away from going, hey, why don't you come stay for a week? Why don't you come stay for a month? Why don't I help you get your foot in the door here? And it's all because you presented yourself professionally. You came off like a decent human. And I think a lot of people are way more willing to help than it sometimes looks like from the outside looking in.
Totally.
You and I are both living, and so many people in racing are living case studies of there's generosity out there in the world. You just got to be around for it to affect you.
Yeah, it was, and I think it just pay it forward. It's like there's so many people that have the exact same situation that, one person opened their door up, to let them stay, and it changed their whole life. So you never know. So it just comes back to being a good person, I think.
I agree. I think you have to be the person who others want to help.
Yeah.
And if you're someone that others want to help, soon you'll be the person that others want to have stay with them for a few weeks.
Right.
Or a few months or whatever, to get to the point where you're making the opportunity that was offered to you happen. But maybe you couldn't have done it if some guy didn't let you come crash in his spare room for a few months or whatever. So to me, that's the bigger message here, which is, you don't get anywhere without the help. Nobody does it all on their own.
Right.
That's my opinion on it. But doors open for people, guest rooms, couches open up for people. You're going to get to open up that door and go back out into sub 20 degree temperatures. And I'm really sorry about that. I can't believe it hasn't warmed up in here. That heater's been running for about 4 hours almost. And we're still just sitting here holding our hands in our pockets. But man, it's good to talk to you. Thanks for doing this. And I think a lot of people will be watching broadcast this year, excited to see what you continue to add to them.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Appreciate you having me on.